Hello and welcome back. In this video we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of the settings that can be associated with a Google Calendar. So a little more technical but very important because it allows you to give access to other people. It allows you to control the degree that they can interact with your calendar. It allows you to get links. Let's just get into the process and we'll look at the whole thing. Now know that the options that you have are going to vary depending on the type of calendar it is. So if it is a calendar that you have created, you have the most control over what you can do. If it's a reminders or a tasks calendar, that's the most limited because those are very special calendars that Google provides. And if it is something that has been shared with you, you kind of have an intermediate level, or your access to making changes to that can vary depending on what permissions you have to that calendar. Okay, so let's start by accessing the settings for a calendar. So if I mouse over or click on a calendar name, I'm going to get the traffic lights or the snowman. Click on those and you'll see that the settings and sharing appear. If I were to do that for reminders, I don't have that option. So very limited. Okay, but let's go back to my main calendar here, and I'm going to go to settings and sharing. Now, first thing I'd like you to note is that my calendar name is displayed here, but if I scroll down, all of my other calendars, both the ones I own and the ones that have been shared with me, are available. So basically I can enter this settings section from any calendar and then get access to all the others. So I just, open that up or close it to deal with the settings. And if I mouse over any, you'll see, extended family events. That one has if I mouse over it, has the eyeball, whereas certain ones are marked with the opposite, the eyeball with a line through it, meaning this is hidden from me. So we saw in a previous video how to hide a calendar from the list. So let's close it up for a second. This particular birthdays calendar is currently hidden. If I go back to my list here, I'm not going to see it anywhere. But if I come into settings and sharing, I can scroll down till I find birthdays. I can click that and it is now visible to me. And if I come back, let me scroll down here. Reminder, say there it is, birthdays. Birthdays appears in my list. Okay, so that's how to unhide something that you've hidden from the list. Okay, next you can see that there's a whole series of different options for my settings for any particular calendar. That's the calendar that I entered on, but if I were to click on this one, it would open up and give me those same setting options. If I were to come down to things that have been shared with me and click on it, I do have some options under here, although they may be more limited. Okay, so let me come back to the original here. The other thing to note is while all of these subcategories are listed here, they're not separate pages. What they are is they're different points in this long-running page. So if I wanted to go to event notifications, it would just slide me down on this page. Otherwise, I can access everything simply by going top to bottom, which is what we're going to do now. So right now, we have a calendar name. You can see that you could edit that if you wanted. And if I click off, it changes here. If I come back to the screen, you can see that it's been changed there in the calendar. If I'd like, especially if I'm going to make a calendar public, I could add a description. So if I was a softball coach and had a calendar, I might want to add a few things to it here. Whatever. Okay, here's where I can set my primary time zone, so I can change that. If I failed to do it earlier, it's a good idea to have this set correctly. You can see that I am the owner here. I can export a calendar from here, so if I was a user of another calendar program like Microsoft Outlook or others, I can get a file here by exporting it. I can import it into the other program, and the events that are on this calendar will be entered on that one. Now, you can see this checkbox. This calendar has been made available to the public, and the public can see all event details. My other option would be that the public can only see if I'm free or busy. Usually when this is a public calendar, the point would be that they could see some of the details. Sometimes I could share a calendar with people individually and just let them see if I'm busy or if the time is open. And that's usually used if somebody's trying to schedule meetings, and it's not really essential that they know what you're doing at a particular time, but simply that you're available or not. Okay. I can uncheck this, and now this calendar is private. So for a lot of my own things, that's exactly what I'd like to do. I'd like to keep the calendar private. No one needs to particularly know about it. The other option for sharing is to share it with specific people. So even though it's now not available to the public, I can let certain people see it. So I will come in here and I will share it with maybe another one of my Google accounts. And at this point, I can say that they can see all event details, or I can also say that they can make changes to events. So this is when I want someone to be able to add things or edit what I've put on, and this is usually done when you're managing a calendar with a collaborator. So I am a softball coach, and I have to schedule the practices and the games, etc. But I'm a co-coach. There's another coach who really has equal access to this calendar so that I don't have to do all the management. A step up from that is to make changes and manage sharing. So now not only can that other coach add items to the calendar, they can also share this calendar with other people and give them permissions to it. And again, in the case where we're equals, this makes sense as a setting. Other times you want to limit it more than that. And you do still have the option to set this to busy or free for whoever you're adding. Now you can add people with, I'll send that. You can add more people and give them different settings. So I can come back in here and I can change this. I can say, well, maybe they can only make or change events and not manage sharing. So once it's established, you can still edit it. Okay, notifications. These notifications have to do with events. So do I want to get notifications on my computer? And they can be in the form of pop-up notifications, where they'll just pop up on your screen if you happen to be on, or email notifications. You can choose either. And this would apply to all events. Now I can always go into an event if you remember, and add them directly there. But these are the defaults. So anytime I create an event, I am going to get a notification 30 minutes before that event is to go off. And I could say that I also want an email notification, let's say 1 day before that's going to go off. So these would be now the defaults for all my events. If I decide I don't want any defaults, I want to set it manually, I can just eliminate both of these. But right now I'll leave them. Okay, all day event notifications. So these are for event notifications that have a particular time associated with them. These are for notifications for events where I haven't established a time. It's just a full day. And now I can say that I'd like a notification days or weeks before it's going to happen, or that I can send an email days or weeks before that's going to happen, and I can specify the time of day I want that notification. So perhaps at 6 p.m. I want all my notifications for things that are going to happen the next day, one day before. And again, I can add multiple notifications if I'd like. General notifications. So the prior notification, these have to do with when events are coming up. These have to do when new events are created, changed, canceled, if someone responds to an invitation for an event, or the option to get a daily agenda again. So I can do these as either email notifications or not receive a notification at all. It's a little different, but these work really when I'm working with a collaborator. So the collaborator creates an event, changes an event that I've made, cancels an event. I'm going to get an email notification that has happened. and that will happen in real time as they make the change or the addition, and I'll get an email about it. Okay, the integrate section has to do with how you can display this, because although I've given access to other people, especially if I've given it to the general public instead of to a specific person, they're going to need a way to get to the calendar. If I've shared it with a collaborator, it will appear in their calendar list. Okay, so one is simply to take this URL. So this is a link I could send, and they will get to the public version of this calendar. This embed code is if I want the calendar itself to appear in a web page, whether that be a Google site or whether that be some other environment where I've created a web page. This goes into the code itself, not the front of the page, but into the HTML. If you stick this in there, the calendar will appear. And there is an option to customize here. So if I click on customize, this is how my calendar is going to look at this point, and this is the associated code that I have to plug in. But I could say, you know what, I want the calendar to be wider, and I want the calendar, there it is, wider, to be taller because it fits well on my web page. I want the week to start on a Monday instead. Default language, I mean generally most of us are going to leave it at default, but you could put it in another language. I could click here and choose a background color, and that affects some areas of the calendar. I could include multiple calendars in my display, which is a really nice option. So if I'm putting up a web page, it may mean that I have a softball calendar and only that calendar is going to go on here. But if I have more calendars that should be shared with the same people, I can do that at one time instead of having multiple calendars. I can adjust the time zone, and then these are some of the controls. What do I want to show? So right now the default view is in monthly view. I could change it to an agenda view or a weekly view as needed. And I can also say take the title off, take the navigation buttons off. I remove the date here. Do I want them to be able to print? Now I've removed the print icon. It doesn't prevent them from printing completely, but this is something that makes it easier for them. I've got these tabs up here that allow the user to change view if they want to, but I could remove them and now they can only see the view that I've given them. This calendar list option, if you come over here, is this little drop down, and you can see that they can turn on or off if I've given them multiple calendars. Really only applies if there's more than one, but if I shut that off, they'll lose access to that control. And then of course the time zone, which is displayed down here, we're not going to change the time zone. We're simply going to hide it from them, or checking that box will display it for them. Okay, I think the only control here that I haven't really shown you is border. That's a very minor control. If you look there, the outside edge of this, there's no sharp delineation, but if you click that, we now get that. So it changes the look just a little bit. Okay, you can give it a calendar title. And that will appear right over the top. And once you're done with that, you can click the update the HTML, and all of that information is going to be stored in here. So you could select that and copy it, and then go into the HTML of your web page and paste that information in there, and it will go and it will pull the calendar and it will display it within your web page as if it's part of your web page. The only caveat with that is you have to make sure that you've got it shared correctly. Publicly is usually the way to get that done, and so it's not going to be a calendar with any kind of confidential or private information. Okay, next section is a public address in iCal format, and this is to access this calendar through other applications. So not through a web page, but through some calendar application specifically. And then this is a secret address. So this is a way to pull it into that application without having to share it with other people. You can reset that. So if you think this has been compromised in some way, you can reset it and it will just give you a new address that you can use. Finally, we have remove calendar. Okay, if it is deleted, everyone who it's been shared with will lose access to it, and you won't be able to get it back. So removing your calendar or deleting your calendar is, a serious thing. Not that you would never do it, but you certainly would only do it when you were very sure that you no longer needed it. Otherwise, you're going to lose the work that's associated with that. Those are the settings that you can apply to your various calendars. And that's how you gain control over what you're sharing with who and how you're displaying your calendar.